The townsfolk of Willow Creek began to notice a change in the house. The ivy grew less wild. The windows no longer stared back with empty despair. It was as if the house itself was healing from its long-standing grief. Children started to leave flowers by the door, and soon the house became a symbol of hope rather than fear. Parents would tell their children tales of Emily's bravery and Arthur's kindness, using it as a lesson: never ignore the cries for help. One autumn day, as the leaves began their descent from the trees, a young couple approached Arthur in the cafe. They spoke of their love for the old house, of its newfound charm, and the whispers of a melody that seemed to carry the echoes of Emily's spirit. They had bought it, they said, with plans to restore it to its former glory. They wanted Arthur to be the first to know, to thank him for his part in bringing light back to their new home. As he watched them leave hand in hand, Arthur felt a warmth in his heart, the legacy of Emily's story living on through their love. The town had moved on, but the memory of the little girl who had danced in the moonlight remained, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest places, music could be found. The restoration of the house became a town project. People donated their time, their skills, and their love, turning what was once a haunted relic into a beacon of hope. The ivy was trimmed back, the windows were uncovered, and light streamed into the once gloomy rooms. The grand piano, now restored to its former elegance, became the centerpiece of the house. It was played often, the music resonating through the streets of Willow Creek, bringing joy and warmth to all who heard it. The couple, now expecting their first child, named her Emily in honor of the ghostly pianist. The day of the housewarming arrived, and the townsfolk gathered outside the newly revitalized home. Arthur, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment, stepped inside. The house was alive again, filled with the laughter of children and the warmth of friendship. He made his way to the piano room, his heart swelling with emotion. As he reached out to touch the gleaming keys, the same melody that had once haunted him began to play, but this time it was filled with joy and life. The ghost of Emily appeared beside him, smiling, her eyes now bright with gratitude. The party grew loud, the chatter and laughter spilling out into the night. Arthur sat at the piano, his fingers moving with a grace that belied his age. The town watched in awe as he played the tune that had once been Emily's lament, now transformed into a song of redemption and rebirth. As he played, the room grew brighter, the air filled with a soft glow that could only be the essence of her spirit. The townsfolk knew that she was at peace, watching over her home and the new life that had been brought into the world. The house, no longer haunted, had become a sanctuary for love and music, a testament to the power of a single act of kindness. And as the last notes of the song faded into the night, Arthur looked up to see the curtains of the top-floor window flutter gently. A silent nod of thanks from a girl whose story had been heard. The years rolled by, and Willow Creek grew more prosperous. The legend of Emily and Arthur became a cornerstone of the town's identity, a reminder of the strength found in unity. Arthur grew older, but the spark in his eyes never dimmed. He continued to share stories of the town's history with anyone who would listen. His gentle humor and warmth as much a part of the town's fabric as the whispers of the wind through the trees. And every year, on the anniversary of that fateful autumn day, the town would gather in the house for a concert, the music echoing through the streets as a celebration of the bond between the living and the dead. But as the seasons changed, so did the town. New faces appeared, drawn by the allure of the house and the tale of the girl who had played her heart out for freedom. They brought with them their own whispers and secrets, and slowly, the old stories began to fade into the background, overshadowed by the promise of progress and modernity. The house, once a sanctuary, now held only the echoes of its past, a silent sentinel to the world that had moved on. One cold winter evening, as Arthur sat by the fireplace, a young boy, the spitting image of himself, approached him with wide eyes and a sense of wonder. "Tell me about the ghost of the piano," he begged, clutching a tattered book with the story of Emily. Arthur's heart warmed, and he shared her story once more, his voice weaving the tapestry of her tragic fate into the fabric of the town's collective memory. As the embers of the fire danced in the grate, he watched the boy's eyes grow wide with fear and sadness, only to sparkle with hope when he reached the part where love and music had triumphed over the darkness. And as he finished speaking, the piano upstairs began to play on its own, a soft, sweet melody that seemed to speak of eternal gratitude. The house remained a symbol of hope and healing, its walls holding the whispers of Emily's story for generations to come. Arthur, now an old man with a heart full of the town's love and a mind brimming with tales, knew that as long as the music played, her spirit would never truly leave. And as the years went on, the town of Willow Creek grew and changed. But the house stood firm, a reminder of the power of a single voice and the enduring legacy of a man who had dared to listen. The story of the ghostly pianist and her champion continued to resonate, a haunting melody that sang of love, loss, and the unbreakable bonds that tied the living to the restless spirits of the past. In the sleepy town of Willow Creek, nestled between the rolling hills and whispering trees, there lived a man named Arthur. Every morning Arthur donned his well-worn tweed jacket and strolled to the local cafe, where the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. His eyes, a gentle shade of blue, twinkled with the warmth of 1,000 shared stories. He had a knack for making people feel at ease with his quiet humor and genuine interest in their lives. The usual Arthur the barista, a young woman with a nose ring and a perpetual smile, called out as he approached the counter. "You know it," Janie Arthur replied, patting his round belly with a chuckle. "1 large black coffee and a cinnamon roll, please." Janie knew Arthur's routine by heart. He was a creature of habit, a comforting constant in the ever-shifting tides of the town's gossip and comings and goings. He took his usual spot by the window, watching the world wake up. As he sipped his coffee, Arthur often found himself lost in thought, his gaze lingering on the old, ivy-covered house across the street. It had stood there for as long as anyone could remember, a silent sentinel to the town's history. The house had been abandoned for decades, a relic of a time when families grew too large and had to be split apart. Its windows, once gleaming with the joy of laughter and the warmth of candlelight, now stared back at him like the empty sockets of a forgotten corpse. The ivy grew thick and wild, as if attempting to reclaim the space from the slow march of time. Yet, every once in a while, Arthur swore he saw a flicker of movement in the top-floor window, a hint of a curtain fluttering in a room that hadn't been occupied in living memory. One peculiar autumn afternoon, as the leaves danced in the breeze, Arthur felt compelled to cross the street and investigate the house. His curiosity had been piqued by the recent whispers of strange happenings around town, objects moving on their own, faint cries in the night, and the occasional chilling sensation of a cold hand brushing against one's neck. The townsfolk had grown nervous, casting suspicious glances at one another. The whispers grew louder, hinting at a restless spirit seeking to be heard. Arriving at the house, Arthur found the door ajar, inviting him in. The wood was old and groaned under his touch, as if the house itself was alive and waking from a long slumber. He stepped into the dimly lit foyer, the scent of dust and decay greeting him like an unwelcome guest. A cold draft brushed against his cheek, carrying with it the faint sound of a melody, hauntingly beautiful and eerily familiar. He shivered, his heart quickening. The house had secrets, and it seemed today they were eager to be told. The floorboards creaked under his weight, echoing through the empty halls. Cobwebs clung to the chandeliers, their delicate strands glinting with the occasional beam of sunlight that managed to pierce through the ivy-covered windows. As he ventured deeper into the house, the melody grew stronger, pulling him towards a staircase that spiraled up to the second floor. Each step was a deliberate act of courage, his hand gripping the banister tightly. The air grew colder with every floor he ascended, the music now a siren's song, luring him closer to the source. On the third floor, the music grew so intense it was almost tangible. He followed it to a closed door, the wood warped and aged. He took a deep breath and pushed it open, revealing a room untouched by time. The walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, depicting scenes of a ballroom in full swing, dancers frozen in their merriment. In the center of the room stood an ancient, grand piano, its black and white keys gleaming, as if freshly polished. The music was coming from there, but there was no one playing. Arthur approached the piano, his eyes widening as he saw the keys moving on their own, playing a tune that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the house. The melody was bittersweet, a poignant lullaby filled with longing and sorrow. His hand reached out tentatively, touching a key that played a solitary, mournful note. The moment his skin met the ivory, a coldness surged through him, and the room grew darker, as if the very light was being siphoned away by an unseen force. The music grew louder, the air thick with an unmistakable presence. The ghost of a young girl, dressed in a tattered, once elegant gown, appeared before him. Her eyes, a deep, mournful brown, met his with a plea that chilled his very essence. She was translucent, her form shimmering like a moonlit shadow. Her expression was a silent scream, a testament to a pain that had long ago ceased to be felt. She pointed to a leather-bound book atop the piano, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. It was her story, waiting to be read, yearning to be told. Arthur knew in that moment that he had stumbled upon a tale that would change the fabric of Willow Creek forever. With trembling hands, he opened the book, revealing a name scribbled in a childish hand. Emily. The pages held the secrets of her life and her untimely death within their embrace. The story unfolded, each word a thread in the tapestry of her tragic fate. Emily had been a vibrant child, full of life and love for the piano. Her parents, too caught up in their own squabbles, had paid her little mind until one fateful night when her cries for help went unheeded. She had been playing a forbidden tune, one that had stirred something malevolent within the house's very foundation. The creature had claimed her, and with her, the house's soul. The room grew colder still, the music reaching a crescendo that seemed to shake the very walls. The ghostly figure of Emily grew more insistent, her gestures more frantic. The air grew thick with a palpable malice, the very essence of the entity that had been roused. Arthur realized that he was not just a witness to her story, but an integral part of it now. He had to help her find peace before the darkness consumed them both. He flipped through the pages, searching for a way to lay her spirit to rest. The words began to blur before his eyes, the cold seeping into his very bones. Then he found a counterspell, hidden in the lining of the book. It spoke of love and forgiveness, the only things that could banish the creature that dwelt within these walls. He read it aloud, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his heart. The music faltered, the keys ceasing their haunting melody. The house groaned in protest, the floorboards trembling under the assault of Arthur's words. The light grew brighter, pushing back the shadows that had enveloped the room. The malevolent presence recoiled, its power waning with every syllable Arthur uttered. And as the final note of the counterspell hung in the air, the ghost of Emily began to fade, her eyes finally finding peace. The cold dissipated, leaving only a lingering sadness that clung to the room like a forgotten memory. The story of Emily and her tragic end spread through Willow Creek, the town coming together to mourn and celebrate her life. The house, once feared, was now a place of solemn remembrance. Arthur continued his morning ritual, sipping coffee and watching the world go by, but the house across the street no longer held the same allure. It had told its story, and the town had listened. The whispers of strange happenings grew quieter, replaced by whispers of a ghost that had found peace, thanks to the curiosity of one brave man. And every time he passed the house, he'd tip his hat, remembering the girl who had played her final tune to save a restless spirit, and the quiet hero who had given her the voice to be heard. Months went by, the seasons changing outside the window of the cafe. One morning, as Arthur sat with his paper, Janie brought him a letter that had been left with his name scribbled on the envelope. The handwriting was unfamiliar, almost ghostly. Inside was a single page torn from a child's diary, the edges frayed. The words, written in a childish scrawl, were simple yet powerful. "Thank you, Arthur. You gave me back my music, and now I am free." Tears filled Arthur's eyes as he realized the depth of his impact. He had not just found a story, he had set a soul free.